I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Hartford City Plan Commission. First order of business is to review the minutes of the February 13th, 2023 meeting.
Awesome.
Moved by Scott.
I'll second.
Second by Tony. Any additions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Item number 3 is appearances. Anyone wishing to appear? Anyone wishing to appear? Seeing none, we'll go on to the 4th item on the agenda, discussion and consideration of a site plan for Gaiman C-Store Edition, 2712 East Sumner Street. Justin?
Yeah, so the Gaimans have proposed an addition of 2,400 square feet on the east end of the existing building, as well as a 6-bay electric vehicle charging station with canopy also east of the building. It would meet all setback requirements. The building addition would. It would meet lot coverage and building height requirement. The electric vehicle canopy would not meet setback requirements, but they were granted a variance by the Zoning Board of Appeals last fall to allow them to go up to the property line. One, it will not have any sidewalls, so it won't have the same visual impact as a full building would. And two, as you look at this photo, you can see there's this big kind of wedge shape of extra right-of-way that the city has at the intersection of Kettle Moraine and 60. And so the canopy will still be set back like 25 feet from the actual road. So that was approved. They're proposing to redo the facade of the entire building so as to more match the adjacent projects. This shows that it would match kind of the mini storage as far as color. They'd remove the siding and replace with LP Smart siding, removing the brick and replacing with a natural stone veneer, and using a wrapped architectural metal at the doorway. They're having some additional conversations about the color. This rendering would kind of match the mini storage, but they're also discussing maybe going with something a little bit more neutral that would more closely match the car wash. At the end of this, if you would like, the representative from Keller could get up and tell you about the other color options. I haven't seen the other one. If you would want it to come back at that point to have the Plan Commission officially approve the colors, you could. You could, after their discussion, if you could say, I'd be fine with either of them. You could say, no, go with this one, or you could leave it up to me. So you've got a bunch of options for how you want to handle that outstanding issue. Even if you wanted them to come back, they could still get started on building. It would just be for the later in the process. Some comments from the engineer and utility department heads about stormwater management, sanitary sewer connection, including a sampling manhole, just how electric will work. We've been in negotiations with We Energies to transfer this over to Hartford Electric for a very long time. We're hoping it's finally nearing its end. And so most of these are kind of just technical notes, not really things that are for this body or me to decide for that matter, but wanted to bring them to your attention. And then they do propose some additional landscaping, some arborvitae east of the electric vehicles charging station, and some additional trees and ground landscaping just east and south of the proposed addition. So staff is recommending in favor, subject to meeting the city engineer and utility director's requirements.
I'm assuming there's no historical district requirements for color or anything out there.
No, nothing like that.
I know I would be fine leaving it in your department to take care of once they bring it back to you. I'd be willing to let the Plan Commission also voice their opinion on it, but I don't think that would be a problem. Anyone else?
The only comment I have on color is don't let whoever picked out the color you have now pick it out.
Anyone else?
Parking going to be an issue?
No, I mean it's a pretty big site, and there's a fair amount of parking around the building. They would retain some parking on the east side. they actually pick up these 6 electric vehicle parking spots. I'm not anticipating any issues, but if they do run into some, they've got additional space that they could put, especially like employee parking up kind of at the northwest corner, or potentially onto the convenience store site.
Where's the charging station going to be located?
Let me see if I can bring up an arrow so you can see.
Right there?
Right there, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and those are going to be, at least the last time I talked to them, they were hoping to do superchargers out there, so there'd be fast charging stations, like 45 minutes for a full charge.
Hence why we need to get the Hartford Electric in place.
Right, yeah.
Also move for approval.
Scott to move. Is there-
I was just going to make a comment.
Go ahead.
I talked about the water size on the building.
Okay.
And looking over the plan, I don't think that you're not really adding much of anything, right, to that, to the plumbing?
Correct.
Yes, I don't, just looking at the size of the piping, I mean, whoever's going to put it in, I would think would.
Yeah, I think, Aaron at Keller, sorry. We're adding, I think, 2 fixtures in each toilet. So there's still a men's room, still a women's room, just adding an additional toilet and I think an additional urinal. The kitchen, we're still doing a 4-compartment sink, hand sinks, so we're not adding anything plumbing-wise.
Right.
Chris still has the existing well, which I think he utilizes mainly for like his bait station and everything. So we can review it with the plumber, but we don't anticipate needing to upsize that service at this point.
Yeah, I don't see it either, so.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? If not, there's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Second by Ralph. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And the 5th item on the agenda, the planner's report, zoning code rewrite update. Justin?
Yeah, I'll be bringing these to you pretty frequently as we go through this process with Grafe, who is our consulting company. So the first thing that they wanted us to take a look at, and you won't need to vote on this. This is just kind of, this is where we're at, and we'll vote on things later. Kind of a matrix going through the process that different agenda items go through to get from start to finish, as well as like who is the, if an appeal is filed, who does it, and then if it goes to circuit court ultimately. So some of the changes have to do with designation of historic districts, and we haven't actually had a historic preservation commission for a number of years. So we'll probably add language such that if there is no historic preservation commission, then the plan commission will serve in that role. But if the city opts to create one of those commissions, then they would still have that authority in place. For conditional uses, there was a state statute change recently, and most of the many communities have the conditional use permit approved and have the public hearing actually at council. We've done it at Plan Commission for so long. I think it works well because they tend to be kind of zoning heavy issues of which you're better versed than the council who just doesn't see them quite as much. So I'm proposing, Ian, the city attorney, and I were on a call with them, and we felt like this should just stay with the Plan Commission. And then the council would serve as the local appeal. So if an applicant didn't like how you decided, the council would still have a role. But the general process would stay with you. For site plan, we would move the local appeal from Zoning Board of Appeals to Common Council. Given how infrequently the Zoning Board of Appeals meets, and again, you're more versed in, and the council is more versed probably than they are in everyday zoning issues, we'd rather have fewer items for the Zoning Board of Appeal to focus on, make them almost exclusively a variance board. So that's kind of where we're going at with that. And then code interpretation. Right now, it's set up that I would do a staff report, you would make a recommendation, and ultimately the Zoning Board of Appeals would make the decision. We haven't done it that way in the entire 20 years I've been here. So it's always been done at the staff level that I make the code interpretation. Aside from Ian, I am the most well-versed in code. So what we're proposing is basically to codify the way we've been doing it. And so I would make a decision, and then if the applicant didn't like that decision, they would come to you for the appeal. So those are really the main changes at this point. There's a couple other small ones, but those are the main ones. So if there are any questions about this or what we're doing with the zoning code in general, happy to discuss that. I think Scott.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I think.
Go ahead.
Are we okay with the distance for the notification of owners?
Yeah. So that was one part of the conditional use permit discussion.
I mean, we're all the same. So should it be more or less?
Well, so state statute for zoning and annexation, stuff like that is the 200 feet. We've always done 200 feet for conditional uses. It's not actually required, and the consultants recommended we go out to 300 feet, and I said, I'd rather just have my staff do one distance every time, because otherwise you mess up once, and it's harder to mess up if it's always the same number.
Yep.
So we actually don't have to do the conditional use permit public hearing, but because we've done it for so long, I feel like let's keep doing it. It's probably not super important because when the state refined the conditional use permit statute enabling code, you don't have as broad of authority as you used to on a conditional use permit anyway. It's if it's allowed as a conditional use, it's it's harder to say no than it used to be. It's more here are the criteria that you can add, and some of that's going to be in the code that you can add. Kind of like we have it in the wellhead protection district, where when they wanted to do that gas tank, okay, it's conditional use, but here's the criteria. So it's a little bit more technical in nature now. I don't know that it's needed to have the public hearing requirement, but I'm fine just leaving it in there. Any other questions?
Tony?
Justin, just quick, the rewrite project, the zoning code, is this something that's periodically done, or is this just something that just kind of came up and we're just kind of doing a rewrite?
Yeah, the last complete rewrite was in '81, and we've just made a number of small changes
Good year.
since then. But there's been so many amendments, there's probably more amendment than original code at this point, and some of it is woefully out of date with the change in businesses. I mean, the internet didn't exist back then, Amazon didn't exist, so there's just, home occupations have changed pretty dramatically. So we had an opportunity to get some funding assistance to do this, because it's not a cheap endeavor. It's over 1,200 hours of work from these people, and plus a lot from Ian and I. But Ian and I have been talking about trying to get it done, and given that amount of time that's needed to do it, we were never going to have the time to devote to do that. And this is what they do, so they're at the forefront of what is the best practices. And so no, this is kind of exciting, at least for me, maybe nobody else, because we get a chance to do it right and kind of start over. And so we will, when it's all said and done, we will repeal the whole code and probably create a new code somewhere else in the different chapter. So.
Great. Anything else? All right, seeing none. Last item on the agenda is adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.